Right, I think I'm live. So, hello Internet. This is Alex does Sudokus, and it is currently Sunday the 8th of November, but I'll be doing the Sudokus for Monday the 9th of November 2020. And let's warm up with some easy Sudokus first, and let's see. Okay, so let's get started with the easy ones. One is here and here, therefore that must be a 1 and that must be a 1. So that's what a 1's done, that's a 2. So 2 is locked in here and here and here. So all the 2's are done. I've got a bit of a cough because I made a mistake of using mold removers in my bathroom without kind of wearing a mask, and I think I'm not supposed to breathe in the stuff, and so I've developed a bit of a cough as a result, and hopefully it's not going to interrupt me too much, but I'm just really self-conscious of my coughing now. So ooh, that little laugh didn't help me at all. So I can't finish the 4s. Can I do the 5s? 5 5. So 5 must be here. That leaves me a 7 and 9, which is this way. So are 5s finished? No, they're not. And what about 6s? 6s, I've got 6 here, 6 there, 6, and 6 here. Therefore, that must be a 6 and 6. So 7s are here, 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 and here. That leaves me with an 8 here, 9 there. This is a 4, and let's see. Got a 9 over here, 9 over there, 9, 9. So I'm just left with a 4, 4, 5 and 4, and finally a 5, and that's the easy Sudoku. So that was nice and quick. Medium Sudoku. So let's go through it properly, because since I started streaming live, I've not really been explaining myself and the techniques too much. So I'm going to slow down a bit today and walk through properly for my YouTube and potential YouTube viewers. So I've got 1s locked in these columns and a 1 ruling out this row. So I can place a 1 in here. So now I've got these 2 1s looking into this cage and a 1 on this column. That leaves me only 2 possible candidates for 1s in this cage. Cages are what I called a box of 9 cells, and whereas, because I think some people, they use the same term box for both a box of 9 or a single box. So I called individual boxes cells, and a cage is basically 9 cells stacked together. So if I look at the 1 some more, I can see I can pencil another pair of 2s in here. So the pencil markings are basically when I'm not sure where number can go. But what I'm also doing is I'm using Snyder notations to solve the puzzle. So one of the kind of guides behind Snyder notations is you only pencil mark in numbers when they only appear twice in a cage. So that means I'm not going to pencil mark in the 1s in this cage, because there are 3 possible locations, and I think 4 possible locations for this cage. And the reason for that, I think, is it keeps the grid nice and clean, and also it it's not necessary most of the times. It actually impedes you from solving the puzzle sometimes. Whereas if you keep it clean, it can actually be quite easy to spot solves, basically. So let's move on to the 2s then. I've got 2 locked in here because of these 2s on a column and that 2 ruling out that row. So there's only 1 possible place for the 2. And that 2 now, in conjunction with this 2 over there, locks a pair of 2s over here. So that's quite useful. This 2 and that 2 rules out the top and bottom rows in this cage, but I've also got 2 here ruling out this cell, so I can place this 2 here, and these 2s locks a 2 up there. So now these 2's ruled out the top 6 cells, and I've got another 2 here ruling out the 7th. So I've got a 2 here, which unlocks the final 2's in this cage. So since I've got 2 here, I could erase the pencil marking and place another 2 basically. So that's 2's. So moving on to 3's, I've got a 3 over here because of this 3 and these 2 3's interacting with this cage. So now these 2 3's unlocks another 3 over there. So these 2 3's ruled out these cells, and that 3 rules out that cell, so I can place another 3 here. So I'm just left with a pair of 3's up at the top because these 2 3's ruled out the columns, and that 3 rules out the row. And I've got something similar happening over here with 2 3's ruling out the columns and a single 3 ruling out the rows. So all the 3's are now pencil marked in. Let's move on to 4's then. So 4, I've only got a single 4 in this puzzle, but it does unlock a pointed pair of 4's here. It doesn't do anything, but just to explain, these 2 4's can only exist in column 8 in this cage, therefore that it only places that the 4 can go on column 8 in general. So basically that rules out those 3 cells because there can't be any more 4's basically. So I think that's all I can do with the 4. So let's move on to 5's. So I can actually solve for 5 here, but I'm going to leave that for a second. I'm going to come back to it. So this 5 looking down and that 5 here unlocks a pair of 5's. Oops, didn't mean to pencil mark in the 8. And now they act again as a pointed pair, ruling out these 3 cells because they have to be on row 9 within this cage only. So I've got a 5 in one of these 3 cells, but I don't know where they are. So that's not very useful. This 5 and that 5 also locks a pair of 5's in here, so they are helpful in ruling out these 2 cells. So I've got a pair of 5's up top now, so that's how useful a pointed pair can be basically. And to form a pointed pair you need at least 2 numbers, and that's where the Snyder notation comes in handy basically. And the other thing that Snyder notation is really useful for is whenever you erase a single candidate, which is a number that you pencil marked in, you automatically know that you've solved the puzzle, you've solved that number within that cage basically. So anyway, why did I know that this is the 5 and not that number? Well, because the 5 here rules out these 2 cells. So I've got 5 locked as a pointed triple in this cage. They have to be on row 6 within this cage. So I can't have any more 5's on row 6. And that's how I erase that 5 and place a 5 here. So hopefully that's useful. And I think that's kind of the basis on how I solve most of these medium puzzles. So let's just do more pencil marking. So these 2 6's rules out those cells. It also locks a pair of 6's here by this single 6. And that is really useful because so the way I spot these myself is that when I look at a pair of 6's locked in row 4 and 6, I'll look horizontally to see if they're locked in the same rows in the other cages horizontally. And sure enough, 6's have to be on these 2 rows in this cage as well. So the 6's has to be on row 5 somewhere, and it has to be in the left cage basically. So that's how I can pencil mark in a pair of 6's. Another way of looking at it is this 6 rules out this cell, and now if we look at the row, the only place that a 6 can go are in these 2 cells. So that's another way of seeing it, but I'm quite bad at looking at it the second way. I'm better looking at it by seeing where the 6's can go and then eliminating them by looking at the other cages as well, which is a reverse way of kind of spotting that the 6 can't go in row 5 at all in the 2 cages. So anything else with the 6's? I can't see anything, so I'm going to move on to 7's. 7's are locked in this cell because this 7 coming up here forces a pair of 7s up here, so they act as a pointed pair. But once you get enough practice, you automatically see it. So even though I've got an invisible pointed triple here with the 5, I knew that it allowed me to place a 5. And similarly, looking at the 7s, I immediately spotted a pointed pair of 7s, knowing that that had to be a 7. So it just comes with experience, really. I'm by no means particularly good in Sudoku, so I'm sure, given enough practice, you'll be able to do that. These two 7s locks a pair of 7s here, and I think that's all I can do with 7s. So let's look at 8s. I've got a pair of 8s up there because of these two 8s and that 8 there. And this 8 also forces an 8 over there, actually. These two 8s locks an 8 there. So what I did was, when I placed the 8, I actually erased the 6, which means there's only one 6 left in a cage. So this is what I mean by how Snyder notations are really useful at once you eliminate a number, one of the candidates, you can solve that number within the cage. So similarly, I can erase this 6 because the 6 sees into a candidate, and I can place another 6 there. So now I've got two 6s looking over into this cage. The 6s have to go in these two cells. So they share the same cells as the 5. So we're going to come back later. Meanwhile, I'm going to place a 4 in here because that's the only number left in this cage. And now if we look at the column, there's only one number left at the bottom, and it has to be an 8. So I think that's already 8 in these cages. So does it open up anything else horizontally for us? It doesn't. So although I have noticed while I was looking at the 8s that I've got another pair of 8s there because of this 8 and that 8. So that's kind of useful. So let's rewind back to where we were. I think I was looking at 7s. So let's stay on the 7s and see if I can do more pencil markings. 7s. Oh, I think I lied. I think I was already looking at 8s because I can't see anything else with 7s. So I think I've already done them all, actually. So let's go back to 8s. Yeah, I've pencil marked in 8s up there. So I was actually looking at 8s. So anything else I can do with the 8s? No, all the 8s that I can pencil mark in, I have pencil marked them in. So let's move on to 9s. Well, in this cage, I've got a 9s in these two cells, but there has to be another number, and they are 4s. So I've got 4 and 9s locked in these two cells. And in fact, let's look at this 5 and 6 for a second, because it is now useful for us to solve the number. The fact that I've got 5 and 6 locked in the same two cells within this cage, but also within the same row, implies that they have to be 5 and 6, basically, because if that's the 5, then that has to be a 6. And if that's the 5, then this has to be a 6. So no other numbers can go in there. So in essence, these two cells are now locked down. They can only be 5 or 6. So we can ignore them and look at the remaining cells on this row. And we can see we're missing a 4 or 9. They can't be 5 or 6s because, well, they are pointed pair of 5 and 6s. So there are no more 5s or 6s. So another way of looking at it is like within the cage, the 5 and 6s, within the cage or the row, 5 and 6s are basically locked down. They're solved. Not solved, but they're kind of like locked down into two cells, so we don't need to look at them anymore. So these two cells have to be 4 or 9. Well, I've got 9 up here seeing into this cell, so this has to be a 4. And that solves the 9 and the 4, and I can erase that 4 as well. So what can we do from that? Well, we can place another 9 up here, because this 9 rules out these two cells, and that 9 rules out that cell. So by placing a 9, I've erased the 5 candidates, so I can now confirm the 5. And finally, I've got a pair of 4s up here, because those are the only two numbers left on a column, but also when I placed that 4, I had already pushed the 4s into those two cells. So that's kind of good going. So let's carry on with the 9s. Well, this 9 rules out these two cells, forcing a pair of 9s down, 9s down here. And again, they are pointed pairs, so they rule out this cell. These two cells can't be 9s because they see a 9, but also they're 5 and 6 anyway. So I've got a 9 up here somewhere. Turns out that's not actually that useful. I thought there was a 9 up here, but there wasn't. I do have a pair of 9s up here because of these 2 9s. And I think that's all I can say. Oh no, I do have another pair of 9s here because of this 9 and that 9. So therefore 9s have to be in these 2 cells. So now, remember what we said about these 5 and 6s. By the way, they're called matching pairs. And matching pairs are great because they basically eliminate those cells from play. So I've got 7s and 8s locked down, 6 and 9s locked down. Then whatever number left in that cage has to be in this cell, and it's a 4. And that 4 locks a pair of 4s over here because it rules out these 2 rows. And in fact, the other thing it does is it locks down these 2 numbers and 6s and 9s because that's the only things that can go in that row. And I've got a 6 here, so 6 and 9 are resolvable. And that leaves me a 5 in one of these 3 cells. Now, I personally do this, but you don't have to. Some people are purists about Snyder notations, but when I spot a triple, I tend to pencil mark them in, as long as they're within the same cage. I even do that if they're quadruples as well, because sometimes that's really useful as well. But in this case, there's no harm in pencil marking in the 5s because these 3 cells are essentially linked up. If I solve any numbers now in this cage, in this triple, they will unravel themselves. So that's why I pencil mark in triples, basically. It just saves you some work from later on. And sometimes knowing what these numbers are useful as well. So, okay, so I think I've done all the 9s. So I've done a round of notations. Oh, by the way, I go up from 1 to 9. I basically count up the numbers, and the reason for that is because I really look for the pointed triples, which some people do Snyder notations by focusing on a cage at a time, and it can be easy to miss out on the hidden triples, the pointed triples that are hidden that you wouldn't otherwise pencil mark in. Some people counter that by basically just pencil marking in any pointed triples, but sometimes pointed triples are actually not very useful. I think it's okay if you've locked down 3 numbers as a triple inside a cage, but if you're just pencil marking in the numbers that appears 3 times in a cage, you can end up with a lot of pencil markings and it becomes a bit hard to follow. So let's move on. So now that we've done 1 to 9, we can do another round of notations. We can go around again from 1 to 9 and see if we can solve anything else. But that's not very fun. What is good practice is actually looking at the weak areas that are developing around the grid. And unfortunately, there aren't any triples or pairs developing on this puzzle. There are quadruples, which is something that I tend to look at. So I've got 4 cells left in these rows and cages. 4 cells left in here as well, but everything else are kind of like more than 4s. So I also got a quadruple there as well. So I think the one that interests me is probably this column. So I'm looking for 1, 4, 5. Oh, actually, this 9 had already unlocked the 9 down here anyway, so that was a bit careless of me. So this is actually a triple, so why don't we pencil mark in the triple? Because remember, we do that. So there are 7s, 8s. Well, 8s have to be lined up here, so that erases an 8 up there. So I can place an 8 now, and by placing the 8, I'm going to erase the 3. So 3 can go in there, and that 3 erases the 3 over here, unlocking the 3. So can the 8 do anything else? No, it can't. What about the 3? Nope, all the 3s are now done, so that's good. So is that useful with the 7? Because 7 can't go there, meaning there's a set of 7s on this row, but I don't think that's very useful. But I am left with 2 numbers left on this column, and they're 4s and 5s, and I've got a 5 there, so that has to be a 4 now because it can't be a 5, and 5 has to go here instead. And like I said, when you've got a triple and if you can deduce one of them, quite often you can unravel the whole thing unless all three numbers can go in all three cells. So by putting a 5 there, this can no longer be a 5. This can also no longer be a 5, but also this can only be a 4 and this can only be a 1. So now let's look at what this unraveling of triple can do for us. This 1 unlocks a 1 up here because of this one and that one overlapping. And now the 1s unlocks a pair of 1s there. So all the 1s are pencil marked in. The 4 doesn't do anything for us because all the 4s on the horizontal and vertical cages are solved. But I have got another pair developing here, which is 7 and 5 and 7. So I can't resolve this one because I can't see any 5s in either cages. But I have got a triple in both of these two cages, so I think I should pencil mark them in. I was in the middle of pencil marking in this triple when I spotted the 8, so maybe I should finish pencil marking this. The only number left is a 5, and I can't resolve them, so unfortunately this triple is not as helpful. There is a scenario where if I solve the 5, if the 5 goes in here, then I'm still left with a 7, 8 pair, so it doesn't necessarily unravel. But I also know that this has to be a 7 and 8, because on a row it has to be 5, 7 and 8, and I've got a 5 up there. But I'm not going to pencil mark that in because pencil marking in the rows will create situations where if I did pencil mark in 7 and 8, then I've got one candidate for each of the numbers, and that's dangerous. It can confuse me later, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to pencil mark in this triple instead. So I realized I just said instead multiple times. So before I do this triple, let's look at this triple first, because we can solve this number. Since I know that this is at least a 4 and a 7, but 4 can't go in this cell, and 4 can't go in this cell either. So this 4 and 7, 4 and 7 can already be resolved. And this 7 now rules out those two cells, forcing a 7 there. And I just need to work out what the third number is, which is a 5. So this 5 oversees the 5 and 6 there. So I could erase the pencil marking, but the quicker way is, if you've got a matching pair, just put the other number in, because you know that you're erasing one, placing in the other, and then placing the original, the opposing number basically. So just flip it. So this 6, it resolves the 9 and the 6 here. So that should, so now that has to be a 6 because the 6 goes here, in fact, because of that 6. So that's also a 5. So now that I've got 6 there, and I've got 2 6s ruling out the columns, I can place the final 6. Anything else developing here? There must be something else. So these are 1s and... what is it? 1s and 7. Oh, I can't actually solve that. But what about on this row? This is... oh, these are 1s and 7s as well. So that's kind of interesting. Not really. So those are 1s and 7s. Let's pencil mark them in. These must be 9s and 4s. Well, I've got a 4 there. So 9 and 4 are resolved. So I think that's all the 4s. And the 9 should put an end to the 9s. So all the 9s are done now. Since these two 9s rule out those two cells, and that 9 rules out that cell. So now that leaves me a single 1, and that 1 resolves to 7 and 1. And... oh, this 5, this could never have been a 5 in the first place. So this triple was kind of locked down already. And in fact, I've got a 5 there now, so this has to be a 7. So that solves the 5 and the 8, and that forces an 8 in there. 7, 8, and 7. And that solves today's medium New York Times Sudoku. And let's finish on the hard puzzle. Hopefully I can do that. So let's do some Snyder notations by pencil marking in some numbers. And I assume that whoever watches this on YouTube is already of adequate level that they can understand the pencil markings and where they go. So this 3 locked a pair of 3s there. I kind of skipped over to 3s because I spotted that pairing there, because I like looking at these cages where you've got 4 numbers locked in a corner. Quite often you can find, like for instance, this 7 locks pair of 7s there, so now I've got a 7 locked down, and that unlocks another 7 because of the 2 7s there and that 7. So now these 2 7s unlocks a 7 there, and I think that's the end of that, so I can pencil mark in those 7s. So what else is into this cage? Nothing else actually, but I do have a triple here now. So what is the triple? It is 2, 3 and 8. 2, 3 and 8. So therefore that has to be an 8 now, because those can't be 8s and those can't be 8, and I've got 2 8s locking these 2 cells. So is that helpful for us? What about the 2s? So that locks a pair of 2s over here because of the pointed triple. So does that do anything else for us? Not really. So we run out of things to do with these cages now. So let's go back to the 2s in general and see if we can do any more pencil markings. And indeed we can't. So what about 3s? 3s are locked in here. Not much going on with the 3s. 4s are in this column, in this row. Not very helpful. 5s. 5 is locked in that cell there because of these 2 5s on the columns. And I bet that's all I can do with the 5s. So let's move on to 6s. I've got a pair of 6s there because of this 6 and that 6. So that locks the 6 down here as well. Not useful. I've also got 6s locked in these 2 cells because of that 6. So pointed pair of 6s locks them here. And that's all the 6s, I believe. Yep. So 7s. Can we do more with the 7s? Hold on. Is that a 7? Yeah, I've locked down a 7 actually. So don't know why I didn't unravel that before. Must have just missed it. So this 7 erased the 6, so it unlocks the 6 and 1. So the 6 doesn't do anything. What about the 1? 1 is now locked in here because of that 1 and that 1. So can't do anything special with the 1s, but I can lock them down in those 2. Oh, actually, that 1 also locks a pair of 1s there. So that unlocks the 1 and 6 as well over here. And anything else I can do? There's probably something going on in this cage. Oh, that's very interesting. They are the 3 numbers that we can't see at all. They are 3, 4, and 3, 4, and 5. And I can't see any of those numbers in these 3 cells. So 3, 4, and 5. Very interesting. So what number was I on before? I can't remember now. Oh, I've got a pointed triple of 4s there. So 4s are locked up here. Is that useful? I don't think it is. So 5s. Nothing new developing on 5s. Oh, 5s are up here as well because this 5 are now locking a triple. So I've got 4, 5, 7 triple. Therefore, these are 2s and 6s, and I've got 6 over there, so 2 and 6 are resolved. And that 6 unlocks a pair of 6s down here. And I think that's it. What about the 2? The 2 doesn't do anything else for us because I already had... Oh, that's a lie. I can unlock a 2 over there. I was focused on this vertical column here with the cages. So this 2 doesn't help me either because I've still got a 2 locked in 3 different positions. So let's move on. I think I've done 6s. So let's go back to the 7s for a sec. I can pencil mark in the 7s there because of these 2 7s and that 7. And that's all I can do. 8. Got an 8 over there with... Oh my god. I could have started with this 8, but I didn't. So that leaves me a pair of 8s there. So that's all the 8s pencil marked in. What about 9s? I've got a pair of 9s there because of this 9 and that 9. So that's pointed pair of 9s. Unlocking a 9 over there because this 9 sees that cell. So now 9s are locked in rows 7 and 9. Is that useful? Yes, they are, because in this case they're also locked in the same 2 rows. Therefore, the 9s have to go here. Yep. Okay. So that's one round of notations. What can we do? Well, we've got a triple developing on this column. And we already see the 2 and 8, which are two of the three candidates remaining. And the remaining number is a 4, so that solves the 4. And that 4 also, also brings a pair of 4s over here as a pointed pair. So now that locks down a 4 over here. So 4s are only missing in the middle cages. Oh no, it's missing here as well, so I was being daft. So what about this triple? This is a 3, 4, and... oh, 3, 4 and 5, of course, 3, 4 and 5 triple, so I can't really touch that yet. So, go MC Hammer. What is it called? Pun. No, not really. It's only a pun if you make it a pun, so ignore me. I've got a triple developing here on this row, so they are 3, 6 and 9. So that's quite a nice triple in a way, because they will resolve one. Oh, actually, that can't be a 3 anyway, because of that 3. So 3, 6 and 9 are resolvable. So this 9 resolves the 9 down here. What else was it? 3, 6 and 6. So the 6 locks a pair of 6s down here. So now this must be a 6, because I've got 6s locked in rows 8 and 9. So there has to be 1 on row 7. And I've got 2 of the columns blocked off, so that has to be the 6. So I've got 3 numbers left in here. I've got a triple, which is 2, 4 and 2, 4 and 5. I can't resolve any of them. And I've also got 2, 8 and 3 in these cells. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so this column I've got 2, 5 and 7. Not particularly useful. But on this column I'm missing a 1 and... yeah, on this column 1 and 5, and I've got a 5 there. So that's a 1 and that's a 5. And I think that's useful because this can't be a 5 anymore. Oh, it can't be a 5 or a 7, so it must be a 2, which resolves the 5 here, leaving me with a pair of 2s there. But also this 5 unlocks the 7 and 5. And I also have a pair of 7s down here, 7 and 6. And that gives me a triple on this row, which are 1, because that's the only cell that a 1 can go, 1, 9 and 4. And I can't deduce... oh, that can't be a 4, so 4 and 9 are resolved. So that 9... oh, there we go, that's the other 9. So all the 9s are done. So what about the 4? The 4 unlocks over there, so pair of 4s up there. Not super useful. I've got 2, 3 and 8 on this column, but I've got 3 and 8 in this cage, so this must be a 2. Unlocking these 2s. So got a 2 and 8 pair, which I can't use. Okay, I'm just going to have a sip of water because all the coughing earlier is giving me a dry throat. Okay, so what have I got next? What about the 5 and 3 pair? No, I can't solve them, but I do know that these are 3, 5 and 3, 4 and 5. So let's pencil mark them in. I've got 3 and 5 there. It may come in handy later, but not right now. I know this is a 7. Actually, I know that these are 5. Oops. These are 5s because of that 5, but what else? Oh, this 1 unlocks the 6 and 1, and that 6 unlocks the 7 and 6, and that 7 unlocks the 7, oops, 7, 5 over there, and also the 3, because this can only be 3 or 7 if I wasn't mistaken. Because I'm looking for 4, 5, and... damn it. 3, 4 and 5 there, and I've got 4 and 5 over there, so it can only be a 3. So it rules out those 3s, and this must be a 2. And yep. So what can I do now? I'm surprised that hasn't broken yet. So that 5 unlocks these 5s. Oh my god, they still don't resolve. What's going on? Something is not right. So let's have a look at the columns. Columns look good, so it must be the rows that are broken then. 2, 3, 5. Yeah, that 5. Oh, no, that's bad. That's really bad. These aren't 2s and 5s. These are 2s and 4s. But that can't be a 4 because I've got a pointed pair of 4s. Fingers crossed I haven't broken a puzzle, then that's resolvable. So this is 3 and 2. And finally, 3 is down here. So 3, 4, 5. So that's 4, 3 and 5. Phew! So I didn't break the puzzle. I panicked there for a second. That's why I kind of rushed it through. So that's today's New York Times hard Sudoku. Oh, I've got a visitor. I've got a viewer, but I don't know who it is. So I can't see it in the chat. So I can see 2. Well, I think are bots. So I don't think I've got a viewer. Maybe you're not a Twitch member, but if you just joined, I'm sorry, I've just finished New York Times easy, medium and hard Sudokus. So yeah, that's it for the night, I think, because I'm going to keep this short, and I need to export this to YouTube so that my YouTube subscribers, I was going to say followers, but they're not followers on YouTube. You've got all these different terminologies on different websites. It's really confusing. But yeah, I'm going to post this on YouTube now. And I'm going to call it a night because it's 20 to midnight. And I have work tomorrow. So today's today's hard definitely feels like one of the easiest ones I've ever done because it was just completely straightforward. Everything just naturally fell into place. So yeah, hopefully I'll get some challenging but not kind of I suppose, to be fair, the last few days haven't been super hard. I've just constantly been missing really obvious signs. So I think New York Times has been quite soft the last few days. Maybe we'll get something a bit challenging that's genuinely challenging. Until then, I shall see you tomorrow. I'll be doing the LA Times Sudoku stream in the morning before I start work. And that'll be quite nice because I'll probably have time to do all of them. So, bye now.